Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Footy Classified. Stunning fallout already to the split first half of round one, with Carlton, Collingwood and Richmond already licking their wounds as the expansion teams arrived. More on that in a moment, but the news tempered somewhat for GWS with the developing story as we go to air tonight, with the co-captain Phil Davis in hospital, serious kidney injury, and is facing some serious treatment as we speak. More on that as it comes to hand throughout the course of the program. Caroline Wilson, football's First Lady, welcome. It's taken the gloss off a little bit, or a lot, for the Giants after what was their biggest day in their history.
I think it has. The officials tonight at the Giants were pretty sober when I spoke to them. They can't say too much. They're still not sure what the prognosis exactly is. Phil's in hospital. His family are with him, but the fact he's still in hospital is serious enough. He played through the game after getting a knock to the kidney in an accidental crash, I think, with Craig Bird in the first quarter. A great performance, obviously, on Buddy Franklin during the night. And it was only in the rooms after the game that he complained to a teammate of some soreness, and things happened pretty quickly after that.
Well, such an important player, playing in such an important position. So we wish him well, and as Hutchie said, we'll bring you more news as it comes to hand. As I welcome Matty Lloyd to the show. Lloydie, an incredible first round, given that it was only half of the round played. Carlton Footy Club, you voiced your opinion in the Sunday Age and then you sat back and watched them on Sunday night. Did you feel a bit vindicated?
Oh, I did, in terms of how far ahead Port Adelaide are in front of them. And there's a damning stat when I was doing my research for this column in that they're the most experienced group from 25 to 29 years of age of Carlton Footy Club, and from 1 to 5 year players, they're the least experienced. So the bracket they're in is Hawthorn, Sydney and Geelong. Right. When they haven't challenged for a flag for a long period of time. And it's just interesting that Carlton's younger group have got 230 games experience, yet Ports are in the 600s. So it's just damning with Gold Coast and also GWS coming, Hutchie, that they're in no man's land, and that's how I describe their list.
So like Melbourne, not as drastic, obviously. Have they missed a cycle? Have they missed their window?
No, spot on. They need to be challenging right now. No one can see them making the 8. So that's why I describe their list as being in no man's land and pretty mediocre.
So talking about recruiting specifically, let's have a look at what they've done over the last 4 years in actual fact. And look, it has to be said, there are not a lot of names that jump off that page and suggest they may end up being 200 game players, and I guess that's what you want. But and to be fair, there's not a lot of top 10 picks. In fact, there's none. So they've traded out of it. But Bootsma at 22, Dylan Buckley is a highly rated father-son. I think he's going to be okay, but there's not a lot that jumps off the page at you. Troy Menzel probably the best or most talented of that group.
Yeah, I think when you look at Richmond and North and also Port Adelaide, and you just name 5 or 6 names roll off the tongue in terms of who could be quality A-grade players. I think we give Menzel some time, but apart from that, so that's why I worry about the Blues.
But you can't just point the finger at the recruiters. You've got to look at coaching and the development of the players as well, don't you? I mean, maybe they would have been more successful had they gone to Geelong or Hawthorn. Yeah,
well, that's always the argument. And again, to be fair, they're not the top 10 picks, but it's not the sort of talent coming through that would suggest you are approaching the window.
It's not the team Mick Malthouse thought he had when he first got there.
I think he worked that out pretty quick.
They brought him in to win, and clearly they're not going to win in his 2 years to go tenure, not even close. And it creates a really interesting conundrum for Carlton on what they do with Mick long term. Stephen Kernahan, the president of Carlton, was interesting about it on the Sunday Footy Show yesterday.
At the end of next year, I'm sure the club will be, whoever's in charge will be sitting down with Mick and going through. I'd like him to stay on. I wanted to put a stamp on this side and build it, because that's what he's been good at.
So you won't extend him before your term ends at the end of this year?
We'll have to wait and see.
Or it will be the end of next year, you said before. So you will let it run its course before you see where it's at?
I reckon the coach needs to have some, about... Look, at the end of this year, it'll be 2 years into a 3-year deal, so I'm sure the club will sit down and see where we're all at the end of this year.
And of course, Stephen Kernahan leaves at the end of the year. For me, they have got 2 options. They've either got to extend him long term sooner rather than later, or let him go at the end of the year.
He's a year and a game into a 3-year deal.
Yeah, but they've got to make a decision on where they're at, Gary.
Let him go at the end of this year.
Well, what's the rush?
Why would you let him go at the end of this year?
I think they should extend him, but they've got to make a call that he's the long-term coach.
But you're saying if they don't extend him, let him go after 2 years. Well, that's crazy. You sign someone for 3 years. This is why coaches get a bad reputation, and clubs. You sign him for 3 years. I thought the plan was Mick would come in, hopefully lift his team into the top 4, and if not, develop them and get them ready to be a top 4 team when he goes. There's no talk of...
No, that's not right. They brought him in because they thought they were close. Ratton had them in the finals. He was brought in to take them to the premiership.
And maybe Mick's
and their team's not good enough.
Sat them down and said, listen, you got it wrong. They're not that good.
I got no doubt that
he's still got 2 years to go.
Mick's not exactly been full of praise about the list, has he?
Well, maybe
No,
when you get
certainly
there,
not lately.
reality and perception sometimes is what strikes
But then
you
they
right
should
between
back
the
him
eyes.
in and say, you're 4 years off, here's an extension.
a year and one game into
Gary,
3 years.
that's a naive view.
Where's he
They've got to
going?
make a decision about where they're going.
Where's he going? He's there for the next year and 21 games. Where's he going?
Do you think he's a long-term coach?
Well, I would, absolutely. I've got great faith in Mick Malthouse. You clearly haven't.
Yeah, but if he hasn't got any tenure of certainty, he will try and extract the most out of that team rather than go backwards,
What's
Gary.
a tenure of certainty? How long's a tenure of certainty? He's got another year and 21 games to go.
He needs to let them go backwards to go forwards.
Well, OK, that's the decision he will have to
It's
make.
hard to do that.
Don't you think he'll make that in the best interest of Carlton?
Well, it's a tough call on him, isn't it?
Well,
But if he was
saying he's
10 years younger, you might say that. I'm not saying he's too old to coach, but it's a big risk to extend his contract now when he's got 2 years to go, as Gary says. He was getting tired at Collingwood, we hear. So is it
They might
sensible
win
to
8,
do
9,
it?
10, 11 games. They might. I don't think they will. I think they'll be down the bottom
Archie,
6 on the
you're
ladder.
You're not underestimating Mick Malthouse, are you? You're not underestimating.
Not one bit, but I don't think that team is... I'm with Lordo. I don't think it's much good.
No, well, OK, so don't underestimate his capacity to look at it and make judgment as he goes. He's a year and a game into a 3-year
But
tenure.
we do have to focus on his game style, though. That's I think,
Well, that's a
where we do
different point.
focus
Yep.
on Mick over the next 12 months. Can he keep up with the younger coaches of this modern game?
Yeah, and he's got to make decisions on players that have been there for a while. Matthew Watson, now there's a lot invested into him. I know that he's had some injuries and missed large chunks of footy, but they need him to be able to stand up in the key post so they can play Henderson where they want to play him. Now, the indication was on the weekend, and I've had doubts about him, he doesn't strike me as someone who's going to play on the monsters. And the monsters are coming. I mean, Westhoff's not your biggest monster,
Yep.
he's a super player, but hey, they're coming.
There's a cupboard full of them.
Every single team you look at have got a beast coming their way. And if you need two in the key post, I'm not sure Matty Watson's going to be one of them.
I think when you take someone at pick 18 and he was the best backman in, you've got to prepare him to play on the monsters. And I think he's just got to be more of a competitor. And I don't think he's competitive enough at the moment.
He's been 4 years in the system. They did take Dale Thomas, and when you sign for big money and you leave from one arch enemy and go to the other, you're going to attract plenty of attention. He would have been disappointed with the way the game panned out. Mitch Cleary caught up with him today on his way into training.
Dale, disappointing fade out last night in the last quarter.
Oh, look, it's never good to start a season like that, mate. But you know, we'll learn from what we did well and learn from what we did wrong, I guess, and hopefully be better for that next week.
Mixed side of match fitness. Do you think that was an issue with the boys last night?
No, mate. We've we've had a great pre-season. Probably had our chances earlier on in the game to put it beyond doubt. But to Port's credit, they're a good footy side, and we let them hang around for long enough, and they took their chances.
They did indeed, and look, Daisy won the footy well enough, but he just didn't convert. Now, you can read so much into this. I'm not that concerned about it. I don't know about you, Lloydie. You'd certainly be giving him plenty of time to find his feet.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that I reckon they've paid in too much money to come to the club if 700's the right figure. But I think that they desperately needed someone to support Mark Murphy. Mark Murphy had his worst year for about 6 years last year, and I think that's why they got Dale Thomas. And I think that he'll be a good player for Carlton.
The Magpies were very disappointing, it must be said, on Friday night. 70-point loss. It came just moments after, or an hour after, Gary Pert suggested they were within 3 years of winning a flag. Again, do we read much into this? Or have they got their own expectations wrong?
Well, it's an amazing fall from grace for this team that won a flag. As we said, I think they're the youngest premiership team since 1978 in 2010, and yet they've just had a dramatic fall. Players have left, their best players have left. Wellingham's over in Perth. So I think that for them to win a flag, and we'll hear from Gary Pert later on, for them to win a flag, you need to be knocking on the door for year after year, be around that top 4 mark. Well, I think they're going to fall around that 7 or 8, even 9th or 10th this year. So I can't see them winning a flag in the short term.
They had a lot of players out on Friday night, and they were playing the team that a lot of people think are going to win the flag at a ground that they don't play their best
70
footy.
points though, Cara.
Oh, look, it was a terrible performance. I agree, and I agree about Carlton, but I think we're being a bit melodramatic.
I do too. I think they played against one of the benchmark teams. I think your point's really well made, and I think they're going to embarrass plenty of teams like that along the way, particularly for a side who had the best midfield in the competition, according to you last week.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, here we go.
One
One
week
week
in and you've written them off, have you?
Well, are the best midfield group in the competition?
I think talent-wise they're among the best midfielders.
Oh,
I accept Lordo's view. I've softened a little. I accept Lordo's view that they don't defend well enough, and they didn't on the weekends. We look at some of Fremantle's soft goals that they were able to kick time and time again through the game. On talent, Gary, their top 8 midfield should
That's
be...
exactly the point I made last week. Look
Archie,
past the talent. look past it.
They're not. I accept they're not defending
Didn't
anywhere
you
near
watch
like they
them
did in
last year?
2010 when they were unbelievably defensive. They're
Well,
unrecognisable.
This is the question I'd ask you. If you think they're amongst the best, and we say that Fremantle are the best, or one of two or three, how many would get a game in Fremantle's midfield adhering to Ross Lyon's absolute mantra? Run both ways, defend as aggressively as you attack.
Definitely,
And-
Pendlebury, definitely Beams.
And more importantly, using the ball well by foot.
Definitely Swan, maybe Swan.
Well, now you're going maybe on a Brownlow
And
medalist.
you gave
the
it to
best.
Caro last week about that St Kilda column, and sort of while I was watching that on Friday, and I thought you must have been pretty embarrassed by watching that.
Look at the smugness on you.
Yeah,
No, but you got it wrong.
I thought the same, actually, and I did text Lloydie and said, how's Hutchie going?
Collingwood's not nearly as drastic as Carlton. There's a long way to go for Collingwood go. Don't jump ahead of the curve on the
And
Magpies.
and it hasn't been, in fairness, it hasn't been dramatic. They won a flag, they made a grand final, then they finished in the top 4 or 6, and they still made the finals. I mean, Hawthorn won a flag and went out completely. Adelaide were top 4, went out completely. So they've been there a bit. Last year was a shock loss. I mean, it wasn't like we expected them. You know, I mean, I don't think it's been as a dramatic fall
Some
as some
punters
people.
didn't win the flag this year, the Magpies.
Yeah, well, early in January I had them as my flag.
And it's only one game.
By February I changed to Fremantle.
It is
It's a
one
woman's
game, actually.
prerogative.
It is the absolute...
They're playing the benchmark.
They are, and it's one game. They were hurt by a lack of personnel as well. Travis Cloke had to do it on his own and couldn't because Michael Johnson just did what he wanted. Tyson Goldsack was a player that was given responsibility for Johnson and either didn't know how, didn't listen, or he was just exposed. So a little lack of imagination. As I said, I know that Reid wasn't there and White wasn't there. I thought maybe Bucks could have swung a couple of moves. I would like Maxwell to have gone forward just to compete against Johnson to see if he could engage him in one way or another. So I was a little worried about that. And I'm a little worried about Maxwell and I'm a little worried about Clark. Again, I'm not writing them off because I'm not doing it on the back of a game, but there's a very big watch on both of these boys.
Yeah, I agree, Gaz. I think that even Ben Reid could go to centre-half back, Jesse White could go to centre-half forward, but it's this defence. You could maybe... Marley Williams is gone.
Yeah.
You could add Seedsman maybe, but...
Well, he's the ball user, though.
He's a big loss, Williams. Massive
Yeah.
loss.
Well, both of them are, because when you looked at that very, very young defence who had to try and defend a ball that was coming in with such regularity, and then the composure on the way out, they missed.
So will he keep playing Maxwell, Buckley, and should he?
Well, I think you've got to give him a chance, but the time will come pretty quickly in the end. And I know there's great loyalty there, and Nick Maxwell would understand that. He's getting to a stage in his career where a game's not guaranteed week to week. Now, on the back of 1 week, would you put a line through him? No, you wouldn't. But as I said, you're going to watch what happens over the next month or so.
It was a dirty weekend for footy in Victoria, wasn't it? It was fantastic outside of Victoria, but poorly fixtured and just really disappointing. Felt like a NAB challenge round here in Melbourne.
Yeah, well, I don't know whether the interstate or the non-Victorian teams are thinking that's about as good a weekend as they've had, except if you're the Sydney Swans, who played in a very un-Sydney-like fashion for mine. There was no zip, no spark, no Bloods culture on display up there. They looked like they were a week away from starting their season. I didn't see the gut running from McVeigh. I didn't see the gut running from Hanbury. I didn't see the nastiness and their willingness to ever be beaten in a contest. I saw none of that. And that's taking nothing away from the GWS. They would have had to have known that they were going to come at them hard.
Yeah, it's fascinating, the Ryan O'Keefe decision. He was out of the team, only got in because Kieran Jack pulled out. But I think that Jack's a heartbeat for mine. Didn't have him play. Adam Goods is really struggling with injury. Suddenly O'Keefe sitting on the bench. And
Is he not in their plans at all, Ryan O'Keefe?
well, that's a talk that his pace is a worry for them, and they want to get games into obviously Tom Mitchell, Cunningham, and obviously a few others in that midfield. So I don't think they're that quick in that midfield. So he's fallen out of favour, which is fascinating considering he won a Norm Smith only 2 years ago.
A year ago. Well, at the end of, just a year and a bit ago. I mean, all pre-season, you've heard rumblings about Buddy and is it going to upset the culture and are they all that happy and is he just rolling up and how much is he part of the team? Is there envy? Is there issues about the unevenness of the list now in terms of what they're paid? And nothing we saw on Saturday night is going to make you not think that.
And the irony was that Mumford, who was the one that gave way for the money, was unbelievable on the other end. And if they'd swapped places, who knows what would have happened. This was his only flicker of form really in the game. Wonderfully held by Phil Davis. Incredibly, given what we now know about Phil's injury. You were very strong yesterday. You said that his best is behind him as a player.
I 100% believe that. I think Gary can speak like this too. I think as a key forward, I reckon you're past your best probably much at 28. I think you struggle to play good footy after that. But he's not far off turning 27. I don't think he's played his best footy since 2008. I think the game's changed a little bit. So it's just the scary part for mine is one game into a 9-year deal. And to me, he's probably got 2 years as a window as a key forward to dominate, and you've still got 7 years after that. So I've got concerns for the investment for the Sydney Swans.
In horse racing parlance, I think he'll come to hand with some real hard work.
He's underdone.
He looked to me like a player that was underdone, and would have liked a bit more support from his teammates as well.
Does he need to, though, get them over the line in the next 24 months?
For his confidence.
I'm talking to help them win a flag in the next 24 months.
Well, that's what I've got great faith. I think he's this unbelievable ability that thrives on hard work and needs the hard work. So I still think he's got the capacity to take them a long way.
Do you agree with that unbelievable claim that he's past his best at 26?
Well, let's not forget what his best was. His best was unlike anything we've seen from a key forward for a long time. So whilst it may sound dramatic, it's absolutely right. But that doesn't mean that what he's still got isn't going to be good enough.
But everything that's made them a premiership team twice has been this workmanlike culture and internal mantra. I know they've had some really good players. And is he going to help destroy that?
You know what, Caro? Collingwood plays Sydney in round 2.
Yep.
So you reckon there's not a bit on the line there, and Richmond play Carlton in round 2. So we'll find out who can get back on track.
Wow.
Talk about it on Thursday night. Just
before we move off that, just wanted to show Phil Davis's injury if we can, and update as best we can on his condition. So this is how it happened late in the first quarter. And Caro, he played the game out, which is unbelievable.
Yep.
But tonight he's in hospital. It's described as very serious, and his family are with him, and potentially faces further surgery.
Yeah, small procedure today, not surgery today, and still a lot of mystery surrounding, in fairness, what exactly is going on with Phil Davis. But it's a really terrible, disappointing story after such a great performance.
Indeed, we wish him well, and hopefully everything goes okay. Thursday night we'll talk about on the Footy Show. Plenty to talk about there with some of our guests coming in studio. Bernie Vince is wandering in. Luke Ball, he wasn't at his best on the weekend, and Dustin Fletcher, who's about to become the fourth longest serving player in the history of games. So looking forward to talking about that. Looking forward to talking about Richmond, another great disappointment on the weekend, and we'll also have a real good look at the GWS. All that and more to come on Footy Classified.
The disappointing thing from us was probably our second tier mids that didn't stand up. You know, I probably thought I'd get more out of Reece Conker and Brandon Ellis today, but unfortunately they just didn't quite, lift their game to the standard that was required. But overall, key forwards were relatively poor. I thought, Jack was well below his best, as was Ty Vickers.
It was unusual, wasn't it? Damien Hardwick singling out players, Ellis and Conker, and also Vickery and Revolt for that matter in round 1. You're watching Footy Classified. You can get involved on Twitter at Footy Classified. And hashtag Footy Classified as well. It's home timber and hardware go where the tradies go, Footy Classified style. And you didn't mind it, did you, the criticising the players?
No, I didn't. I suppose as players you understand what gets said after each game and at training, and when you go in to sit down and see the coach, you're getting that sort of feedback all the time. That was tame. Anyone that would suggest that those players that take offence to that is kidding themselves. Brandon Ellis,
well, you'd hope not.
Brandon Ellis and Reece Conker would both just say, yep, I absolutely agree, and I reckon Tyrone Vickery and Jack Revolt would as well. So I didn't have one problem in the world with it.
Did you?
No, I didn't know that. No.
Okay.
Well, I guess the coach has got his wish in a way, hasn't he, with Jack Revolt, because he didn't want him to kick as many goals, and he's not.
Well, Jack Revolt's a fascinating study, isn't he? And we will talk about him because Jack put a self-imposed media ban on himself. It seemed to have not lasted too long. He caught up with his old teammate, Matty Richardson, played prior to the game on Saturday night, and this is what he had to say.
The frustrating part is that a lot of the times, especially newspaper articles are written about you that I actually haven't even spoken to these people before, and they don't truly know who I am.
You didn't get picked in the leadership group. Were you hurt by that?
Oh, look, I'd be lying if I didn't say that I was pretty hurt about that. And I've heard comments that people think that the leadership group isn't for me, and I don't have that style of leadership that's appropriate for AFL football, but I sort of really hit back at that and say that, look, I think personally I really developed as a leader last year.
That was Jack Revolt with Matty Richardson. Personally, I'm glad he did it. I'm glad he spoke and said that he made a mistake by using the word media ban, and hopefully that will be the end of it.
Well, I hope so, because what happened after Jack got dropped from the leadership group was childish. It was embarrassing.
On his behalf.
It was petulant. It was beneath him as a bloke, because all the times I've met him, he seems like a really good bloke.
So he made a mistake, didn't he?
He made a really big mistake. Yeah. And what's disappointing is that, I don't know if people at the club tried to stop him from doing it. I don't think anyone... I think he said it on his regular radio show. They didn't know he was going to say it. But you would hope that Trent Cotchin or someone in this much vaunted leadership group that he's not good enough to be in because they reduced it, would have the strength to take him out and to tell him that he was behaving like a gig, because he really was being an idiot.
It wasn't that bad. He just said he was into his regular spots. He could have handled it a bit better. He came out a laugh at his own expense on the weekend.
Yeah,
in round one,
then said,
before the game.
media doesn't understand me and it's hurtful and they don't even know me. The media report what they see, and what they saw was a bloke running away from a charity basketball game, a bloke on radio saying, I'm not going to talk to the media because they didn't understand my feelings about not being in the leadership group. I mean, it was pretty...
But it's
unbecoming
he got rid of it. He had a bit of a laugh at himself on the weekend.
Well, unfortunately, it was just unfortunately we couldn't see a bit more on the footy field.
That was a commitment to the game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to do commitments as a player. Will we see him then come back to other gigs? You know
I
what
don't
I mean?
think so.
No,
I think what he was saying is if he had his time again, he'd say, look, I'm not going to do regular paid gigs for us in the footy show for, I think it was Gold or Mix or one of those. But I would imagine through the course of this year that he'll talk at various stages, say, look, I agree.
But you know what I'm saying about other leaders should take him aside. I hope someone...
OK, maybe they did, and that was the reason that he did come out and say that.
Took a few weeks.
Well, I don't know the answer. They're young leaders as well. Trent Cotchin's in his second year as the captain of the footy club.
And they were terrific. He and Delidio were terrific.
Were fantastic. I mean, they showed true leadership during the game.
Can I just ask, Lordo, they've taken considerable weight off him, at least 4, maybe as much as 7 kilos. He's obviously going to play high, half forward a lot more. Have they done the right thing by him and the team by getting him so lean?
I don't think they have. I think for Jack Riewoldt, when he's at his best and when he was at his best, he's won 2 Coleman medals. He's a contested marking player jumping, and then he's cat-like at ground level, inside 50. This doesn't suit everyone, and he didn't have a great game the other night, but I think Damien Hardwick has to say to him, Jack, you're a 70% inside 50 player, 30% up the ground. We can't go to you as often as we did in the past. But on the weekend, we got Tyrone Vickery as well, who he became the go-to player. So if you're trying to spread the load, Damien Hardwick, well, they went to Vickery 14 times, Jack Riewoldt 3 times, Gary. Surely that's out of whack.
Well, particularly given May made an absolute mess of him, and Vickery's positioning was all wrong and got continually led to the ball. So, you would have thought the opportunity in the end was to shuffle him around and take May up the ground a bit.
That was an unbelievable game from May. That was the best fullback game.
We had 17 spoils, actually.
Yep. Unbelievable.
I thought he was in the best 3 players on the ground. The midfield dominated again, as tends to be the case. That's another story. But I don't think Damien Hardwick is going to play him 70% deep and 30% out.
I think he needs to get him happy again, and I think that's where he's vibrant, plays his best footy. And I think Damien Hardwick has been caught up in what has happened at Hawthorn. I think they said...
It happened to you. The same thing happened to you.
Yeah, the same thing happened, and you just have to evolve. But I don't think it suits Jack that well. But I thought they said we cannot rely on Franklin to win us a flag again. So they said we've got to find other options. But their options at Hawthorn were... at Hawthorn. And their options were Roughhead, a pure forward, Gunston, a pure forward, Brewster, pure forward, Rioli, a pure forward. Well, for Riewoldt to step aside, it's for Vickery, Griffiths, Martin and Edwards. So if you haven't got the quality there, work to your strengths. And Riewoldt being more inside 50 carry for mine is a strength and will win more games for Richmond.
I agree. And Vickery keeps teasing, but we just haven't seen it consistently at all, have we?
And yet, they played finals footy for the first time in a long time last year because he was able to develop different options going forward.
And all year...
If Damien was sitting here, he'd probably say that.
But I don't understand. Sometimes there are mixed messages because all year we heard Jack played one of the best game he's played for the club in the win over Carlton in round 1, and I don't think he kicked maybe 1 or 2 goals.
That's right.
And we heard that all year, how Jack was obeying team rules. And then, come the start of this season, he's left out of the leadership group. So was he really doing all the things
hang on, the leadership group is 4 people, isn't it?
5.
5 people. That's not. I don't think that's a big deal. That doesn't mean he's a bad
leader. Well, it was to Jack.
Well, OK, I don't, I'm saying. I don't think it's him.
I didn't either, but clearly it was a big deal to him.
Yeah, and he will learn from that. We're going to talk about Jack Riewoldt, I reckon, all year. We'll move on.
Not as bad a loss just quickly as the other 2. Not as big an upset. Gold Coast are a good team, and they normally beat Richmond.
The superstar forwards are on the way quick. They're coming over the hill, and unfortunately for the competition, GWS has got 3 of them, 1 in the reserves and 2 who, again, remind us on the weekend. Patton was sensational, Lordo, and he's still eligible for the NAB Rising Star, which is unbelievable. He's kicked 4 goals, had a big influence on the game. This is going to be a formidable combination.
Well, Hutch, they got Cameron as sort of a zone selection or a pre-selection, so it would have been, those 2 would have fought for draft pick number 1. So Cameron was always going to be a star, but the thing I found fascinating is they played a 3-pronged forward line with Giles, so I can see them, they're just preparing for a three-man forward line. So Boyd, Cameron, Patton can all function together in that forward line.
I think he's deceptive, Johnny Patton. You look at him, he's a big man, but he's got some wheels and some tricks as well. So something to be excited about, that's for sure.
We have to give some credit to Leon Cameron. I know these guys are kids and they've had another season and they've brought in some really good mature age recruits. But they did have Kevin Sheedy for 2 years, and some of us questioned whether he was great for the marketing side of it. Was he the right man to develop these young kids, particularly when they really had mainly recently retired players come in as assistant coaches? Now we're seeing also, as well as development and another year and some mature age recruits, the benefit of proper development and coaching for a whole pre-season.
I've got no doubt about that, but also the fact that now some of them are in their 4th year of competing at senior level. And these are the elite kids, and they're always going to get better, in spite of what was put in place early, which I thought was a mistake.
Don't underestimate, this was one of the great upsets that we've ever seen.
It's one of the great wins. It was one of the great wins, and the captain of that footy club, I know Hutchie, you've got enormous time for.
Oh, he's really emerged as a big-time star, hasn't he, Lordo? He was sensational on the weekend. His leadership. Look at this, Mark, and the game was really on the line early. Just made a statement early in the game, and again later in the game. He's been just sensational already through the pre-season, Lordo.
He's elevated himself big time, and you've got a bit of a bone to pick with the compensation.
Well, he was a West Williamstown kid, earmarked to be the Bulldog favourite son at a young age. Played him in year 12. They only got a first-round pick for him. Now, you compare it against Scully in the 2 first rounds and the way they manoeuvred the system. I mean, first round was used on Jackson McRae, going to be a very good player.
Who would you take now, Craig? Who would you take now?
Well, Callum Ward is a much better footballer than Tom Scully.
I agree with that, and I think it just fell on. Scully was a first-round draft pick. Callum Ward was taken, I think, around 17
to 20. End up with 3 players after only having 2 first rounds.
Because there was some manoeuvring late with picks in and out of the draft, Gary.
But my heart bleeds for the Western Bulldogs, Craig, and I think it's really, really sad for them. And in a way, it shows how unjust this whole expansion system can be. But could they have kept him? Did they have a chance earlier on?
Yeah, I'm surprised that they didn't go to him earlier on in his tenure at the Bulldogs and lock him away longer term. I'm sure they had a window to do it, but they'll regret it for a long time. The local boy, who would be almost the captain by now, wouldn't he? He would have been right there with Griffin as the captain of the Bulldogs. A lot of teams earmarked for success the next couple of years, Gary. Yeah, everyone thinks they can win.
How many flags are presented in the next 2 years?
Well, once upon a time, you never ever gave yourself a chance of winning the flag in the competition. Now,
remember when Peter Schwab did?
Yeah, he killed it for everyone.
It was Gary's idea.
He declared they could win it, and then
you told him to say it. That's right.
I said be bold.
Now
he was out of a job mid-season.
Everyone thinks they can win. Have a look at the clubs who are clamouring to win a flag in the next couple of years.
When do you win a premiership?
2015, 2016.
We're going to win a grand final in the next 3 years.
We're going to be bold and make a statement that by 2020 we won our second premiership cup.
I would suggest that not only playing in finals for the next 3 years, but I would expect us to be top 4 and winning a premiership during that period of time.
So there's 4 teams not in the top 8 who've won flags in the next 2 years, Gary. This is going to be pretty tight at the top.
St Kilda said 2020.
I'm being facetious, Caroline, but 15 was the year both teams, expansion teams.
Have they done the wrong thing? I'm asking the question. Have they done the wrong thing by putting it out there?
Well, I think some of those teams haven't got a good grip on it.
We didn't play Jeff Kennett saying that they'd win 2 premierships in the next 5 years, and they won 2 in the next 6.
Yep.
So it worked for them.
No, it didn't. They didn't win inside the time frame.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. So they got 2 in 6, so you're going to hang them up for that.
He tried to take the premiership coach in round 1 last year, Gary. I don't think we can
Jeff
Jeff a lot
Kennett
of
came
credibility.
out and said we want to win 2 flags in 5 years, everyone sniggered behind their hand, and they won 2 in 6.
Carrie, do they do that for the supporters? Because
absolutely. St Kilda, I was there when Peter Summers made those comments at a media briefing, and you've got to sell hope. And he did say by 2020, and we are only in 2000, what are we, 14?
Yep.
Time flies. Gary Pert, we were there. He came into the 3AW box. He was bold. He was up and about. He was there to be behind Nathan Buckley. And we asked him a lot of questions. I was surprised that he went on to say a minimum of a flag in the next 3 years. Stunning.
Well, we'll wait and see. We'll take a break. We'll find out when...
Well, the year 2018, Carroll will follow the rundown.
Yes, we'll find out if Port can win a flag in the next few years. Next on Footy Classified. Welcome back to Footy Classified. Thanks to Home Timber and Hardware. Go where the tradies go. Port Adelaide last night against the Carlton Footy Club was so impressive. General consensus around this table. Half thought that they were going to live in the 8 again this year, Caro. Well done. The other half think they might slide out. They were impressive. They looked like they picked up exactly where they left off.
This fitness thing is just stunning with Port Adelaide Power. Their fitness work, Hutch. They went to Dubai and they were running. They ran 90 kilometres in the 1 week that they were away. So he's just smashed them up to another level. They were too fit. They won 15 last quarters last year, and it looks like they've just overpowered another team.
And it's never been more evident than in the first up game of Jared Polek, a kid who left Brisbane without a great work rate and a bit of a soft body. I think when he got there, that they laid the law down to him and said, you won't play in this team unless you can get yourself up to the level. And I don't know whether it's confidence in the body or a better team around him, but he showed the sort of form that had him taken as pick number 5.
Yeah, it must be another blow for Brisbane to watch that. To go with Wines, Wingard, and I love Boak and Hartlett too, their senior midfielders, Ebert as well. And here's his average. In Brisbane, he could only average 12 disposals across 16 games, and yet
he got his average disposals at Port Adelaide, have you, Lordo? That wasn't hard to work out. One game.
I think it was Gary's stat.
Well played, Lordo.
No, but over his NAB
He's
Cup,
averaging 24 touches, is he? He's averaging 15 kicks, is he, every game?
We'll
That's
see.
unbelievable.
Well, we should do it again in a month. I agree. It's off one game, but his NAB Cup series was it's just as good.
Yeah, and look, there's this great self-belief there. Ken Hinkley spoke about. Hutchie's trying to get ground back. You're that far in front at the moment, it's not funny. But it is a good news story. And the other thing, Justin Westhoff, this is a player who starts seasons incredibly well. He was a Brownlow medal favourite after about 6 games last year, and then dropped away and came back again towards the end of the year. But he's a super talented player. He's the first one they throw back when they're under a little bit of heat. Kicked 4 second quarter goals. If they can keep him up and going, and I'll ask you about John the Butcher in a moment, whether or not he can maintain a spot in that side. But Schultz is the other key forward. They're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, and good clubs just keep developing and getting the best out of players. And I think that's what they're doing at the moment at Port. Westhoff used to be one of the most frustrating players in the comp, and now he's so consistent.
Brisbane must be kicking themselves over that already. Must
Ollie.
be. Oh, well, he's exciting. It's what
One
they need
game,
in that
though,
market.
Hutch, one game.
What they need in that market. He's an exciting, fit young player.
They go on his average of just 1 game.
Yeah, but they had so many players who weren't happy.
Well, Justin Levy should be the one who would have sat back there and just gone, what the hell's going on? Hey, John the Butcher, this is a man that was, Lord, I remember...
You're too hard on him, Gary.
I haven't said anything.
I don't know what you're about to say.
We watched this kid in junior footy, and everyone said he's got all the attributes to be a top pick, number 1 pick, except this component, and that is ability to convert opportunity. If he can't get this right, I question his place in this Port Adelaide side. It is that serious a problem.
I'm with you, because I think you lose confidence in a teammate if they cannot put them through the big sticks. And you made a great point this morning when we first met, and you said the commentators said they laughed. He hit the post late in the last quarter, and they said, "Oh, that's a good effort from Butcher because he hit the post."
What an indictment that is.
It is.
He needs some time. He hasn't played a lot.
Time, Hutch.
How long?
It's mental at the moment, so isn't it for him?
How long?
Oh, I reckon he'll be a really good part of that team.
He's been kicking since he was 5.
I know, but it's a confidence thing, isn't it?
I think he's a terrific kid
more
and
than
great
confidence.
competitor and all that sort of stuff. But Hutchie, if they get to a final, they get to the business end of the season and he's lining up from 25 out and sprays it out and it misses everything, you're going to sit back and
You
go...
don't think Ken Hinkley and his match committee haven't had this debate?
Well, they keep playing him.
20 times.
hasn't played a
Well,
lot.
no, they didn't. They didn't play him all last year.
Because he had injuries last year.
Yeah, but no, he was dropped a couple of times too, in my memory.
She's right there, Gary.
But I just want to ask
Right.
you,
Right.
you're saying...
Can we just
Stop and
recall this
rewind.
moment?
So, Hutchie, you're saying confidence, you don't think his technique's an issue?
There's a definite technique issue. I'm not going to argue with you guys over
get
technique.
confidence from your technique.
But let's just see him play for a bit and see how he
Well,
goes.
we've seen him a fair bit.
Mitch Clark is a sad story at Melbourne. He was evidently there at the club today. He thanked the people on Twitter who have supported him, and he'd like to thank Melbourne Footy Club and everyone for their understanding and support at this time. Caro, he's been through a rough run. He's got some personal issues that he needs to work through, and we're not going to see him for quite some time. Hopefully we see him again, though, in Melbourne colours.
Well, look, I think there is some hope, and I'm sure Melbourne are giving us a worst-case scenario because they want the pressure off poor Mitch Clark, who obviously the pressure of that massive contract, the injuries. I mean, remember those first 3 or 4 games he played under Mark Neal? He was their one shining light at the time, and then the injuries started happening. We heard he was going back to Perth. We now think that's not the case, that he might be staying in Melbourne. And there is some hope that he might be back, within 2 months. I mean, it's a faint hope at the moment, but it's not over by any means.
Yeah, look, it is it's not a footy story any longer, and that's the bottom line.
Well, it is a footy story. It's about how the demands and the pressures of a game that the stakes have just got, even from when you were playing, the stakes have got so much higher, Gary.
Yes, but you know what I mean. It's not about whether he can get out and kick the footy. That's not the concern.
It's another sort of a footy story that we're dealing with more and more now, I think.
Yes.
And we have to sort of accept that.
And the footy component of this for Melbourne is that they have got an $800,000 a year investment, which is the furthest thing from their mind. But in the supporters' eyes, at some point they need to work through how they're going to manage Clark and Dawes on big contracts in this forward half.
You're spot on, and I think that let's hope that even if it's next year, by the start of next year, that they can get an investment on. Because I agree, I think he was their best player for periods last year.
Yeah, the 800,000 was always a lot of money. He was on track for a 60-goal season in his first year, and it might not look so bad. We're going to take a break. Good call, bad call, and Caro's arrow still to come on Footy Classified. Back to Footy Classified, time for good call, bad call, and Lordo gets the new ball. Caro, well,
2 weeks in a row, I guess.
2 weeks in a row, and well deserved. Ben Cousins should not be considered for the AFL Hall of Fame. Good call, bad call.
Good call, Gaz. I think the Hall of Fame encompasses everything in a player on field, off field, and West Coast didn't even nominate him, so good call.
Well, I don't like this at all. I've got nothing to do with this. I don't like it, but I'll read it. Channel 7 have gone too far, taking away Brian Taylor's earpiece. What's that mean? Good call, bad call.
Yeah, that's a good call. Save BT call, Gary. He's my favourite man on television. They've got to let him steer the ship. He's out of the pre-game, which I don't like. And then during half-time, he wasn't present enough. This is the influence it's having.
But he's got a concussion, so he can't come back on. So
is that Charlie Dixon?
Yeah, so that's not great, mate.
Down to 2 rotations on the bench now with Martin out of the game and Dixon with a concussion.
And I'm just noticing that Charlie Dixon is not out on the ground at the moment for Gold Coast, and we're hearing on Twitter, via Twitter, by the Super Footy thing, that he has an issue.
Yeah, Richo was onto that a little earlier at the start of the quarter. A concussion injury has been confirmed, BT, so down to 2 rotations.
That's not Brian's fault.
And you're so perfect, are you?
No,
and you are so perfect.
Hang on, it's not his fault. They've got to let Brian host the pre-game, host the half-time and steer the ship like he did last year.
Deplorable.
They've got to get some harmony back in that team and give BT a better go is my...
Well, I hope you never make another mistake on air ever again, Craig.
Caro, AFL officials should have acted earlier during the GWS Sydney match. Good call, bad call.
Good call, OC health and safety call. If it's true that when there's a sign of lightning, you end the game,
OC health.
They didn't end the game. Didn't I say that? Occupational health and safety call.
You said OC.
Well, it's got a nickname, has it?
Yeah, well, don't you ever...
It was a difficult situation that was handled well. Gary, Sunday football...
No, it wasn't.
You weren't even there.
They left
You're
them
out
on the
sipping
ground for too
Chardonnay with
long.
the girls at the book club.
Watching the game.
Sunday football was an unmitigated disaster. Good call, bad call.
You're right.
Yeah.
Good call, Hutchie. Sunday football at 7:30 is a disaster.
Sunday night football, you mean?
Monumental proportions. Well, we're not 7:30 in the morning. I couldn't watch Fat Tony. You and Fat Tony, I had to tape that and go and watch it after the game. Absolute disaster. Back at you. Colin Sylvia's failure to reach Freo's expected fitness levels is an indictment on his old football club. Good call, bad call.
No, bad call. Ridiculous cheap shot at the Demons call, Gary. Nothing to do with them. It's to do with Colin. If what you're saying, and that's what you're saying, is correct, then it reflects on Colin Sylvia, not Melbourne, not anyone else.
Correct.
Bad call.
Well done. Lordo, St Kilda must embrace Seaford or walk away. Good call, bad call.
That's a good call, Gary, because I think that you can't spend too much... The downtime in footy is too much, and I think that if you're miserable, spending too much time, get to Moorabbin as quick as possible.
You can't let Cara write all these questions every week.
Come on.
The new match review panel is soft. Good call, bad call, Cara. This will be a shock.
Good call. Save Justin Westhoff call. If last night's game is anything to go on, that was a direct elbow or arm to the head. And he should have been cited for it. And I know he's been suspended for a week for another incident. I can't believe he didn't get cited for that.
I thought he was a bit lucky, Hutchie.
We're not a match review. It's not the
we're not.
offsiders,
As
Gary.
a rule, we're not.
When something
360.
smacks you right between the eyes, you've got to bring it up.
Come on.
Come on.
Aaron Sandilands is a Monty to win the Brownlow. He plays more than 18 games. Good call, bad call.
Good call, goat call. He thinks that he will. And look, this is the fourth quarter, start of the fourth quarter. Look at this. He's still fit. He's still going. Look at this tackle that he lays here.
What's his right price, Gary?
What do you mean?
To win the Brownlow.
Oh, he's eating double-figure odds at the moment because he's got some history of injury. But if his form tells me, his history in Brownlow betting tells me, Lord, if he stays fit and stays sound, he's a big chance.
He's a man at the Gold Coast, unbeatable.
Unbelievable game from Ablett on the weekend again. Caro's Arrow coming your way next on Footy Classified.
Paul Roos, the Melbourne Football Club and their coaching succession plan. I'm sick of hearing about it. I don't believe in it, and I certainly don't think you can force it. We've heard all sorts of names touted as Roos's successor. Cameron Ling, Stuart Dew was a serious one, and he got cold feet. Who can blame him? How can you sign a bloke to be your next senior coach before he's even been your assistant? It just doesn't work that way. It has to be organic. Paul Roos came to the Melbourne Football Club against all odds. Who knows? Ross Lyon might be available in 2 years, John Longmire in 3. Stop talking about Roos's successor and celebrate Paul Roos.
It's unprecedented, Caro. It is an unusual situation. Sure. Coaches are appointed all the time without being assistant
Clearly,
coaches.
shortage of topics this week. Clearly. That was pretty thin. That was wallpaper thin.
So, Craig, if every week I'm going to do the Arrow and you're going to analyse it with that brilliant, breathtaking piece of clear thinking, I think we'll just bag the segment.
No,
because this has been something that has occurred. I've been thinking about this ever since Paul got the job. I understand
it's unprecedented. It's a different situation.
I understand it was a great way to get him over the line. But it worked at Sydney. They'd worked together for 9 years, him and John Longmire.
Yeah.
How on earth... I mean, so Matthew Lloyd becomes his successor at the end of the year. They say, I've been told by the board, that the guy who gets a succession job will be signed on with a view to be getting the job contractually within 2 to 3 years.
No, I agree.
I don't understand what's wrong with that.
I agree it's unusual, but one of your points you made, I'm not here just to... I'm not going to argue with you all the time. But you can't say appointing coaches not been there is unusual. I mean, coaches are appointed into new environments all the time. To actually have someone come in and work under Paul for a year or whatever the case may be, well, surely that's got to be of some benefit.
Don't say you are our next senior coach. Well, that's a bit that I don't think is going to work.
That's what they're going to have to do, because that's what Paul
I'm with
Roos
Cara
is
100% because I heard Peter Jackson say he wants to do it by the end of next year.
Yep.
So don't put a time frame on something.
End of this year.
End of this year, sorry. Don't put a time frame on something when someone better, as Cara said,
Clarkson, he's just re-signed another 2-year deal with Hawthorn now till the end of 2016. But that's only 3 years away. I mean, Roosie might enjoy it for 3 years, and then Clarko might be available. You just don't know what's going to happen.
I agree. It is highly unusual, and it'll be one of the intriguing stories. It also might mean they have first crack at the best available.
But like Stuart Dew was offered the job, it was, in my view, certainly small-minded of City not to let him go and do it.
No, and then they did in the end, and then I think his family didn't want to make the move, so that's why he didn't come. But he might have spent a year under Roosie, and they might have all gone, oh my Lord, we've got another Mark Neild here. We can't make this guy the next senior coach.
Paul's worked with him before.
Yeah, well, there would have been a much more informed decision given his exposed form. Hey, quickly, Danny Frawley, you've twice now written about his role at the Coaches Association.
Once.
Haven't you written 2 articles about it?
I wrote
2 articles in 3 days.
2 articles.
No, that was a news story. I wrote a column about the Coaches Association on Saturday. Yes, I did. I think that now has to be a full-time job. The stakes are too high now. No, he doesn't work full-time.
He's there every single day.
No. He by his own admission, it's a 3.5 day a week job. I think he's in
Four.
Oh, he's told me he's in the office 3.5 days a week. Maybe it's now grown to 4. It's a full-time job, Gary, and
it's an evolving job, isn't it? I mean, this is an association.
It's not the job he took on that he when he started 5 years ago.
It's
5 years ago,
it's changed.
You could work on TV. You could be a media commentator. I don't think you can now. And it's not the fact that he's on Fox Footy and telling jokes, as I think others have been critical of him for. I don't mind that. I don't think you can do any other job. I think it's such a big job, and all the coaches are saying that they want to know what they stand for.
Well, I think it's an evolving role, and it's changed a lot over time, and I think he'll make a decision throughout the course of this year whether or not he can do justice.
Deep down, I think he knows he's got to go one way or the other.
An internal review on at the moment, so we'll monitor that as that's what they're doing as we go on.
The closing cook still coming.
Anything else I've written that you want to take issue with this week?
Hey, we want to have differences of opinion. It's not just always about you. Closing cook coming your way next on Footy Classified. For home timber and hardware, go where the tradies go. This is Footy Classified. Tomorrow's headlines, we start as always with the Age newspaper. Cats on target, says the Age. The Australian says former basket cases show the way for the Demons. The West Oz says Morabito's back for the Waffle, which is fantastic. Road runners will be hard to catch. says Ken Hinkley. And expect less Magpies is the 360 view in the Herald Sun. Time, though, for the closing cook. Here's Gary Lyon.
Spoken already about Callum Ward, what an unbelievable player. Jack of all trades, does everything at that footy club, and that's what we love about him, willing to take on any role handed to him. But this is beyond the pale. This is just ridiculous. The man's just played his guts out. He's won the medal for the best player on the ground. Now he's got to bring in his own advertising paling. Hutchie, what's going on? Where's Dave Matthews? Where's Sausage? What's Sauce doing down there? He's doing nothing.
You wouldn't have done
Give him a
that.
hand.
All you got
I
this
just
week?
sat there and not done it.
Okay,
see
that- the
next
arrow was
Monday
brilliant
night.
compared to that.
We'll be back.
Brilliant.
We'll see you then. Good luck to you, team.
That's all you had? Carrying the board in?